Many, many years before my kids were even close to being the age of a high schooler, I was terrified of homeschooling the high school years. Are you feeling that way too? You might have little ones, or maybe the years are going by and you're getting closer to it. Possibly you might even have a high schooler and still feel terrified. I don't want you to feel like that. I don't want you to stress about homeschooling high school because actually, it can be the most fun homeschooling years ever if you go into it with a certain mindset and with a certain set of ideas about it, and then also be open to shattering all of that and be open to redoing it. So today's episode is going to give you that foundation, that framework to go into it, and then hopefully you will feel so much more freedom at the end of this episode about homeschooling high school and actually be looking forward to it. That's my goal. Let's do that together now. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening. Are you feeling lost in your homeschool journey? You're not quite sure how to make decisions about curriculum? You're not quite sure if you are even qualified to homeschool your kids. You don't know what to even do in the day-to-day? I hear you. I have felt that way. My goal here on the podcast and everything that I offer to you is to get you to a place of peace and confidence to fulfill what God has called you to do. Your homeschool blueprint is the way for me to come alongside you when you are feeling like I mentioned, you're just having trouble with decisions about curriculum. Maybe you don't even know where to start, or maybe it's too much curriculum. You don't know if you're qualified. You don't know what to do in the day-to-day. And your homeschool blueprint is full of the practical answers to those questions and a lot more. And it is a step-by-step to achieve a successful homeschool because I know that's what you want. You want a successful homeschool. You just are unsure if you actually can pull it off. Stop drowning in fear or stop drowning in the chaos of the homeschool that you have created and join your homeschool blueprint today. And I can assure you that you will be set for the coming homeschool year. I know we're on summer break right now, but summer break will not last forever. And I want you to be set up and have that peace and that confidence as you go into the 2024-2025 homeschool year. You can join your homeschool blueprint at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/blueprint, or you can just go to the website and click on it there, but the link will also be in the show notes for you. When I began homeschooling, I had a first grader and a third grader and also a preschooler in tow. And people would ask me questions like, oh, you are definitely going to put them in school for high school, right? I mean, I guess they phrased it in a way of question, but it was actually them just telling me what they thought that I should do. And I was scared of what I would even do. How am I going to pull off homeschooling these children through high school? How am I going to educate them? Because I remembered in high school just such pressure to be able to get as many A's as you can and to achieve a certain level in the class and to go on to college. And I thought of all the courses that I took, things like chemistry. How would I even ever do that at home? I don't know chemistry anymore. I took the class, passed the class, probably by the skin of my teeth, and moved on with life. How am I going to teach a child to be able to learn chemistry? Or just put in any subject in there in place of chemistry. Even if your kids never want to take chemistry, you can put in tons of different subjects. But I was just so fearful of it. And my answer when that question was, when people would ask me, oh, you'll definitely put them in school for high school, I just would say to them, we are taking every year and every child just each year as it goes, and we will make individual decisions for each child. And that was a miraculous answer. Everybody was just like, oh, okay. That made them feel better that, she might be compliant in the future. Little did they know that it was kind of just a little bit of I don't want to say a white lie, but it wasn't in our plan to ever put them in school. So I knew I had to pull off high school, but just didn't quite know how I was going to do it. Then all of a sudden, here I was with a high schooler, with my daughter in ninth grade. And I was like, okay, we are going to do this. We actually also live in a state that makes it very difficult. Once you start high school, it's very difficult to transition them back into the school system or to the school system if they've never been in the school system. And I didn't quite realize that until we were going into ninth grade and I started learning about the rules and the setup of the public school system in our state. And so I knew that once we started, this was going to be it. And I think that actually might not be a bad thing because it caused me, and it would cause any parent then that has that notion, that has that idea, that knows that information, there's no turning back. And so therefore, you have to figure it out. And we most certainly figured it out. I have 2 kids that have graduated homeschool. They have gone through their high school years, and I am right now in the middle of my last child. He just finished 10th grade, so we are in the middle of his high school career, we'll say. And it's been so much fun, and I am no longer terrified by it. And I do admit that I was a little bit when we started out and a little bit scared, but it just is part of homeschool. And as you start to see the fruit of homeschooling and you start to see that it actually works, you become more confident. And so I'm going to infuse that confidence. Take my confidence from me, please, and feel confident as well. And know that if you don't have high schoolers yet, please don't stress and don't be anxious about it. You will have the wisdom and the experience and the expertise and the knowledge, and just your personality will be in a place that you'll be ready for it when the time has come. Let's talk about the practicality of things. Let's first cover the record keeping. Let me tell you this from experience and also just from common knowledge of how much we have in our lives as homeschool moms and how full it is and how much we have to remember. I want to impress this upon you when it comes to record keeping. You will not remember. I promise and assure you of that one truth. When you get to the end of high school, whether that is going through all 4 years of high school, I say that because my second born, I graduated him after 3 years. He was just done. So we completed all his credits, we completed everything, and he was done. But most traditional kids are going to then have the 4 years. After those 4 years, you will not remember what you did in year 1. And that is okay, because guess what? We shouldn't have to try to remember. What I want to encourage you to do is to write everything down as the year even goes on, because you've probably seen this. At the end of a homeschool year, you have a hard time remembering even what you did and covered in the beginning of the year. So write down the subjects, the topics, write down the resources that you have used, whether those are textbooks or other means of curriculum or websites or programs or courses. Write it all down as you are going through the year. This doesn't have to be on anything fancy. I would just recommend having just a notebook that you can just keep that in. That way it's not a single sheet of paper that can easily get lost. Have it in a notebook. Write down everything that you are doing throughout the year so that you don't forget. Also, do not forget that what your child is doing during the summer also counts. You can tack that on to the end of the previous homeschool year, or you can add it to the beginning of the next homeschool year. I personally add it to the beginning because in my state, the homeschool year runs from July 1st to June 30th. So anything that occurs between July 1st and June 30th is in that homeschool year, even if we have not started to work on any formal curriculum. But write it all down. You will not remember, I promise you, and that's okay. Actually, I think it's a load off of your shoulders not to have to remember, knowing I have it written down in that notebook. There are states that have strict homeschool regulations, and if you haven't figured out, I live in a state that has strict homeschool regulations. And there are states that have loose homeschool regulations. If you live in a state that has loose homeschool regulations, especially for high school, and you are concerned about whether you are meeting requirements, go ahead and take a look at some of the states that are more strict. And if you want to follow those, you can. Doesn't mean that you have to submit the quarterly reports that I have to send in or anything like that. Doesn't mean you have to write those down, but if it will give you some type of guidelines, some maybe guardrails for you to use as you plan out your homeschool years for the high school years. But it doesn't matter if you live in a strict state or a loose state. Go ahead and write it all down. You might live in a loose state that doesn't even know that your child exists, and you complete high school and you can just finish it up whenever you want. You can make up your own diploma and all of those things. It doesn't hurt to write it down because your son or daughter might need that for future. They might need it for a transcript in the future, which we'll talk about in just a moment. Record the days that you are doing homeschool. If you want to record hours, you can. But a lot of states will say you can record hours or days. And again, some states have no idea that your child even exists. But record the days, especially for high school, so that you can show that you have completed your 180 days, as they say. Also remember, though, take a look at the homeschool regulations and remember that there are 365 days to accomplish those 180 days. Please take advantage of that. Take advantage of the days during the summer when they are still doing, we'll say in quotes, doing homeschool. Now let's talk about the transcript. You do not have to keep up with a transcript as the years are going by. I did this with my daughter, and at the end of every year, I would transfer all the information onto a transcript so that it was there. And I stressed myself out about it. And I said, okay, we have a transcript. I had found a template and made up a transcript. And every year I'd write it down, what subjects that she completed. And you can do that. I just know that for myself, I did that with my daughter, came to my son. I started doing it. I might have done it with my second high school graduate maybe halfway through, and then I just kind of fell off the wagon. And I will admit that with my last one, I am not keeping up with a transcript. But that does not mean that I cannot create a transcript. Remember when I talked about writing it all down? Write down the subjects that they are doing and write down the resources that you are using in order to accomplish those subjects. I can very easily go and create a transcript in just a couple of minutes if I needed to because I have all of that written down. If you want to wait until high school's all the way done and go ahead and have a transcript and have that available, you can do that. If your kid is definitely on a college track, then maybe you want to keep up with the transcript, or maybe you just want to have more meticulous notes in your notebook. Then you can at the end write out a transcript. But typically if you're applying for colleges, they want a transcript maybe by the end of the junior year. And there are also some colleges, if you take some courses online, that are going to want some type of transcript. But it will not be a big deal to create this transcript because you've been writing everything down. Now let's jump to the part where we're going to talk about counting credits. How do you count a credit when it comes to high school? Different states will have different words for it. My state doesn't necessarily call it a credit, but that's basically what it means is a credit. And courses will be 1 credit if it's for the entire year, half a credit for half of the year. And therefore, if they are saying something like mathematics, we want them to have 2 credits of mathematics or 3 credits of mathematics. That would be 2 years for 2 credits or 3 years for 3 credits. It's different than college because of the hours. And so just think about credits. It's 1 for each of the years. And if you are doing formal curriculum for any of your subjects and you choose a curriculum that is for high school, it should then translate to having the correct amount of hours, and you'll be able to count that as an hour. So let's just talk about world history. Maybe you are required to do a certain amount of history or social studies or whatever it is called in your state for their high school credits. And if you do a high school world history, well, that'll count as 1 credit. And maybe you have to do a total of 2. That means that you've got 1 down and you've got 1 to go. Now, there are some parents that feel very strongly about being strict about hours equaling credits. If that is you, you can do that. You have my full permission to go ahead and do that. If that is not you, you have my full permission not to necessarily count every single minute and every single hour, just knowing that they have accomplished that curriculum. And again, most schools will say that if you have completed, say, let's go to that world history, 80% of that curriculum package or the textbook, whatever it is, that counts as completing it. And so it is up to you if you want to do the 100% or you want to do the 80%. For some of the subjects, especially like world history, I was like, you're missing 20% of history if we don't do the entire thing. So I was a little bit more of a stickler with that because I wanted them to get the full picture of what the curriculum or the resource was providing to them. There are blog posts, there are all kinds of formulas that you can use to see if what you are doing equals a high school credit. You can do some research, you can look into that, but I will be honest and tell you, I didn't do any of those. And I've graduated 2 kids, and they have been successful now. Neither of them have decided to pursue higher education, going to college beyond high school. And so maybe some people might look at that and say, well, you can't really say anything. But I can tell you that my kids took college credits when they were in high school. My daughter probably has about 30 college credits completed from her high school time. So they aren't really even going to be worried about her high school transcript. They're just going to want to look at what college courses she took and how did she do. So they would really only want a formal transcript from the college that she took some classes in when she was still in high school. Let's now pivot a little bit and talk about creating your own courses. But before I do that, let's talk a little bit about English and math. In my opinion, I have found it more useful to actually follow a formal curriculum when it comes to the English or math. Maybe that is a course online. Maybe it is a textbook. It is some type of resource that is going to teach them just progressively in it. It's not going to just throw them into things and it's just going to be all over the place. I found that it was better to just stick to a more traditional homeschooling when it comes to English and math. And so that is just my opinion. You can take that or leave that, but it also relieved me of some of the stress, knowing that they were getting what they needed from that. And so therefore, I didn't feel stressed about, okay, they're not quite getting their math, or they can't actually form a complete sentence or write a paragraph. I knew that they could, because I didn't want to have to pull in resources from all kinds of different places and confuse them. So what about the other courses? You can create your own, and I know that might sound risky. When I started off homeschooling, I was very strict. We had a curriculum for every single subject, for every single grade, for everything, because I was too scared to step out of line. I was too scared to create my own, to step out of the script that had been created for me. And over the years, I am definitely not afraid to do that. And I have found by taking just that one chance on maybe one course, and if your kids are not to high school yet, maybe take that one subject, that one elective, and create your own and pursue how they want to learn it and watch how successful they can be. And that can give you the confidence that it's okay to do that in high school as well. And it's been a lot of fun. My kids have learned a lot. And so with my daughter, I was still pretty well strict with following the rules, and that just appealed to her as well. Like I said, she took a bunch of college credits. That just appealed to her. Then I got to my boys and began to shift, and with her as well. When she got to her senior year, she took a lot of more electives, and we created those electives from just different resources. I mean, the internet just has so much out there. And I would find courses she was interested in, alternative health and all that kind of stuff. And I would find courses that were meant for adults. They were absolutely appropriate for her to do. And we would enroll in those courses, and she would go ahead and do those and learn what an adult would be learning. And I thought that was absolutely just fantastic. And so translated that then to my now 19-year-old in his high school, and we shifted and did a lot of entrepreneurial electives for him. You can do a ton of electives. My state tells us some of the main things we need to do, and then I fill in with all the electives. If we were just to do what we had to do, we could be done within probably about 2 years if we wanted to, and then we would have completely electives, and that's kind of a little bit of my approach that I have done. But let me give you some examples of credits and doing some of the subjects a little bit differently. For my 10th grader now, we did chemistry last year. And traditionally, you would think, oh, you do biology in 9th grade. He was very much opposed to biology. He said, I just do not want to do that. And I had to make that choice. Do I push him to do that, or do I shift and say, what do you actually want to be interested in? I think there is a lot of really great stuff that we should know about biology and health, and I just was a little bit more sneaky about how I introduced that to him. We just didn't follow a specific biology curriculum. Instead, I just did as an elective and combined it with his health. But he said he wanted to do chemistry. And I had an entire chemistry curriculum that my daughter had done. I had the Bunsen burner, I had the textbooks, I had everything. And I decided that we're going to do things a little bit differently because he really wanted to know chemistry. He didn't want to do all of the formulas, and he might not have even had the math background in order to be able to do those successfully. And so therefore, I found some books that you could just find at a bookstore that I ordered online. And we did do experiments. None of them involved a Bunsen burner. We found videos online, and he knows so much about chemistry because of last year. He'll pull out that information and tell us. And I never found that to be true with my older two. Partly because they really weren't that interested in it, and I just forced them to do it. Now, my daughter enjoyed doing more of the biology stuff, and she ended up going on and doing biology 2 and anatomy and physiology because that's what she was interested in. My second born, we did the bare minimum of science and then found a lot of electives for him to do that had to do with entrepreneurship. But you can do a ton of electives. Let me give you another example. My 16-year-old right now, even though we are in the summer, he is finishing up a drone pilot course. He wants to get his drone pilot license. And so we started in the spring, I believe, is when he began going through this course. And it is just online and it is created for adults. But the things that he is learning is just, it's amazing. The things that he knows and he's really interested in it. So every day, even now through the summer, we have a goal of that by the end of the summer, he is done with that course and he feels fully prepared to go ahead and take his test in order to get his drone pilot license. Guess what? That counts as a college, as a high school course. It might even be a college course, but I will count that as part of a credit for his high school. Don't dismiss the things that they are interested in. When it comes down to overall all of this and homeschooling high school, there is an underlying fear that you probably have, and that is from the school system. And I'm sorry. I felt that same fear. And if you're in that fear, first you need to recognize it. Because once we recognize it, we can begin to step out of that. If you are still feeling fearful after this, I suggest that you pick up the phone and you give a couple of colleges a phone call. Maybe it's a community college. Maybe it's a couple of Christian colleges that might be a possibility for your child to go to, or a couple of state colleges. Just some that you would be okay with them going to. Give them a call and just ask them, what do they want to see from homeschoolers? What exactly do they want them to know and to be able to do? And I think that's going to make you feel really good about what you are doing and also in your planning ahead. You can also have your child do dual enrollment. Most of the time that is through 11th and 12th grade and can be done through colleges, whether that's locally or online. And they will then be able to show to colleges, if their plan is to go to college, that they can successfully accomplish college courses. But again, not every kid has to go to college. And I think in the past couple of years, a lot of parents have realized that it isn't necessary for every single career. And we shouldn't give in to the social pressure that our child should have to go to college. It's okay for them not to. It's okay for them to create their own path. And we get to do that with them. And that's exciting. So I know this episode is getting a little bit long. I'm sorry. I just enjoy talking about this type of subject. If you want to talk to me more about it, please let me know. And remember that your homeschool blueprint is where you can set up your homeschool, no matter the age of your kids. Maybe you have little ones. Maybe you do have high schoolers. Your homeschool blueprint is going to take the worry and the anxiety out of the equation, which is a little bit of what we've talked about too. And I can come alongside you as well in your homeschool blueprint. But I'd love to see you over there because I know that it's going to lead to a successful homeschool year when you guys hit the books again and you get up and running again. You can get all that information at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/blueprint, as well as the link in the show note. Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.